So come in.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is Dr Cheryl Chapman, and I'm here to help people to share their stories, to tell us about what they've changed in their life, and also to inspire others. And I'm slightly out of breath, but you're going to hear about that in a minute, no doubt. I am here today with the amazing, wonderful, slightly unusual titled lady, the Body Whisperer. So, Louise K Shaw, please introduce yourself to the viewers and to the listeners.
So thank you so much, Cheryl, for inviting me to this. I'm Louise K Shaw, known as the Body Whisperer. And I'm calling you from a very, very sunny London.
Yay! We had a few technical issues. That's why we were a little bit late starting, so apologies for that. So we're running around, haven't we? Trying to be really calm and zen. And Louise is like, we'll just be centered now, we'll just breathe. So Louise, thank you for joining me from sunny London. And as I said, our whole idea of this program is so that people can really be inspired by other people's journeys. I think, when I first came into personal development about 5 years ago, I was like, I only really knew about famous people's journeys. Everyone seemed to have been brought up in the gutter and survived the gutter and then were multimillionaires, etc. And so the idea here is that people genuinely get to know everyday people, who've had everyday problems, I guess, to be able to help them. But before we get into your amazing story, a little bit of fun. I asked my guests, what was your favourite film, may still be, as a child, and what was your favourite character? So who was your favourite book or film or character, Louise?
Well, actually, I think it's Cinderella.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, I always sort of saw myself as a poor old Cinderella being at home, having to do all the chores, because I lived with 3 brothers, and I was very much the one who had to stay at home and do all the chores on the weekend whilst they went off and played golf. Not that it affected me at all. But yeah, so I always sort of saw myself as Cinderella, knowing that one day my prince would come along and rescue me. But that sticks in my mind.
Yeah. So Cinders. So the thing is, you wanted to be the Cinderella with the golden slipper and the big blue dress. But at the time, you were feeling like you were in the rags. You didn't have any ugly sisters by the sounds of it, and I'm sure your brothers aren't ugly either.
No. But my dad brought us up in that sort of way that it's a bit old-fashioned, that the girls stayed at home and the boys went out and had fun.
Oh, so the question then is, where does your story start? Because clearly you don't look like Cinderella mopping floors, if you don't mind me saying.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess my story started, the journey of self-development for me really started when I was living in America. And one day I happened to wake up and I was in excruciating pain and couldn't really walk properly. Now, I knew a couple of days before, leading up to that, there's nothing that I did physically that would have caused that problem. And so I sort of went on a 2-year challenging journey, really, trying to understand what was going on. Now, I'd already had quite an interest in, the mind, how the mind works, but I guess that this was my first real introduction on how powerful our minds were. Because, I went and did all the traditional routes, the chiropractors, etc. But my back specialist said that the only way that I was ever going to walk properly again was having the disc removed from my spine. So, sort of feeling a little bit like...
painful, yes.
Yeah. But you know what, I was sort of sitting there thinking, I think it might be better off in my body than out. So it was really interesting because I started getting invited at this point to what I considered at the time some really weird and wacky events. Like I was invited to a Maori healing session. Now, at the time, I was very much the person that believed, that this might have been a sort of a structural problem. But it was when I started seeing these Maori healers, and they started talking about, they started, putting their hands on my body and started telling me bits about my past, and to such minute detail. This wasn't just like some generalized, like the horoscopes type thing. They were being very specific. I started to think, there is something to this, that your body does remember everything that's ever happened to you. And so that was my introduction to this whole mind-body connection, the real introduction, because I was suffering for the fact that I was holding on to the trauma of so many events in my past.
Interesting. So obviously I've had a little bit of an introduction into how the body can tell you. Your body's like your emotion, like the intelligence, really, the intelligent part, with my connection with Marion, of course. But for those people who are listening, who might be thinking, like I did, to be fair, 5 years ago, and like you were, hang on a minute, what's all this about? So in terms of like the body holding on to a memory, so are you saying that in terms of, you not being able to walk, that was all to do with a memory, with a trauma, rather than it being a physical exertion? Like you said, you've not done anything, have you?
Yeah, well, you see, actually what happened after that, I went and I started to think, okay, that this isn't a structural, I didn't fall over, I didn't have an accident or anything like that. So I started to open up to the fact that there was something else going on. And then when I've seen these Maori healers and they were talking about things which were just incredible, I just thought there's something to this. And then I started to see a hypnotherapist, and she introduced me to EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. Now this was created by Gary Craig, I think in the 80s or 90s, I can't remember. And this is where you tap on the meridians in your body. Now, this isn't something new. I mean, the Chinese have been doing acupuncture for, thousands of years. And all that EFT is, we affectionately call it acupuncture without needles.
Mm.
But in this session, I was shown how to do EFT. And the pain literally jumped from the right side of my body to the left-hand side of my body. And all we were doing was tapping on these meridians, and we were talking about things which came up in my mind, about events that have happened in the past. And I would have had no conscious connection of that event causing this pain. And it was when I went home for 5 days, I just literally tapped everywhere. I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. I didn't have the real system, but I was just tapping and talking about everything that came up in my mind. Now, the point is, Cheryl, 5 days later, I was walking without any painkillers and upright and no pain. Now, that's consolidated the fact that our minds are so powerful, but what I've subsequently found, it's not just your mind, your body is holding all your traumas, because your body gets affected by events that you have in the past, and your body will hold the residue, the energy of those events. So, that's what you need to get to. You need to get to the mind and the body. So, yeah,
brilliant, and bring it both together. I had a little image there of you tapping everything in your house, but I presume you meant you were tapping your body, right?
Yeah.
I've got vision of you going around tapping everything in the house. Yeah, but on yourself. So this is where the meridian centers are. Yeah. Okay. Cool. We've got somebody joining us here, so I just want to say hello to Davey McConaughey. Fabulous show yesterday, Davey. Oh, bless him. Look, two of my favourite ladies. I'm sure Julie, his wife, will be thrilled. Thank you for joining us, Davey. So this is interesting. So now the body's connected to the mind as well. The body can hold a trauma from the past. So I know you've worked with a lot of people, and I know that you started to make a change in your life, didn't you, so that you could be able to do this. So what were the changes that you made? You found out about this amazing Maori, EFT, this Gary guy. I can imagine like all of these things are happening to you. Like I imagine your hunger for knowledge grew. But what did you do? What did you do to try and change your life?
Well, I guess actually there's a sort of little bit in between that, because when I came back from America, I loved living in America, and my journey back here, I didn't realize the impact of that change was going to have on me in my life. And I think it brought up, it was like a pressure cooker. And now I know that I've been suffering with symptoms of depression and PTSD for a long time because of a childhood event, which I didn't know until recently, because my body had held it subconsciously, didn't want me to remember, until I got into this work and started releasing the traumas, and I actually realized that an event had happened when I was younger. But the thing was, my journey then sort of expanded more into the understanding why I was behaving the way I was, why I was reacting the way I was, why I was sabotaging my life in the way that I was. And, you know, I became more and more interested in that. And so I studied, you know, I've studied many therapies, energy psychology modalities now. So I've got EFT, got matrix re-imprinting. I became a Reiki master because I understood the power of the energy within our body. Because after all, Cheryl, you know, we're just energy beings. We are just made of energy. So when you can start moving the energy around your body, it's like unplugging the plumbing system in your house. You know, if you've got a block in the drains, the water's not going to go away. It's just going to start smelling and going horrible. Well, you are an energy system. So if you've got any blocks in your body, that's going to cause some trouble, and it causes dis-ease, which is your body not being at ease. So that was my journey, really.
And so, I mean, I understand if you don't want to share what happened when you were a child, because for some people, you know, it's a private matter. But we talked about this a couple of shows ago, in the fact that, you know, when you're a small child, I mean, Marion always says to me, you know, when you're a small child, if you drop an ice cream and you're 5 years old, that's a trauma, right? That's a trauma for a child. So there's lots of different, you know, examples. I know, you know, when I was left alone and I was asked to wear a key around my neck, at the time I didn't think it was a trauma. And even when I grew up, you know, I used to think, oh, that's why I'm independent, you know, because I was left on my own for an hour a night, you know, when I was 5. But actually, through doing work like you're doing, I realised that the words that my mother said to me, which was, you've got to be careful, don't let anybody in. Well, quite frankly, that screwed with my relationships for at least 35 years, because I didn't let anybody in emotionally. And of course, I went through life being careful because I thought that was like really good advice. So I don't know if you want to share what your experience was or some other experiences, because I think when I was first understanding this, I was like, well, I haven't got a trauma in my life. But actually I had. It just was quite relative, right?
Yeah. I think, you know, when I started to look at, okay, what's going on and why am I reacting the way, I always had this feeling of melancholy. I always had this feeling that as much as I was sort of like happy-ish, there was always this black cloud, and that's all I could ever describe it as. But the interesting thing was, I always put it down to, I was bullied a lot at school, quite relentlessly. And I could never understand the cause. You know, I talked to my best friend who was there, you know, we went through this whole sort of experience together. And I'm like, what did I do? And she said, well, you know, just being present, just being there, just having a mind of your own caused that scene. But what was important was the words that were said back to me. Now, we know through the works of Dr. Moto, that words have got an energy behind them. They have a vibrational element to them. They're powerful. You know, you write the word backwards, it's swords. They can cut you. And I was thinking about this the other day, that if you're going to school every single day and you're getting words told to you every single day, you're going to start believing them, because that vibration is going to start becoming part of you. Now, but then you sort of go back, and, you know, it's an event that when I was much younger, and like you say, whatever event you have, it's dependent upon your age and your perception of that event. Because you and I could have both the same event, but because of our programs, because of the way that we've been brought up, you'll perceive it one way, I'll perceive it another. You may be continually traumatized by it, I might not be. It just depends what our programs are. So I think, you know, I think it's just a case of, there was a lot of events growing up that I had put, you know, my subconscious mind just basically said, no, you don't need to know about this anymore. But it was doing this work that actually started to open the lid. But the thing is, most people, you know, when people say, I want to keep on looking at my past, I want to go forward, I want to be successful, I want to be positive, I want to go forward. That's brilliant if you've never had any trauma in your life. But the reality is, we all have. I need to look forward and not look at what's you're dragging with you, you're never going to go forward in the way that you could. And it's not a shameful thing to have to go back and just say, do you know what, there's a few things I just need to tidy up a little bit. That's great. You don't walk around your house in a mess. You tidy up your house every now and again, don't you? It's the same analogy. Why would you be present in this body holding crap from the past?
Yeah.
It's very simple to change it.
Yeah, and also it's a little bit like, when you move into a new house. Let's say you've got a house. Well, as long as it's not a brand new house and you're the first people there, whenever you move into a house, there's probably somebody else's wallpaper there. There's probably somebody else's, rising damp. Depends what else is happening in that house, right? Well, you wouldn't move in and go, oh look, this has been happening like this for years. Let's just leave it as it is. You get out the scraper, get the wallpaper off, and you treat the rising damp, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just put a load of new wallpaper over the top. And that's where I get a sense that, it is really about going right back to the foundation, if you like, going right back to, the foundation of you, and going, okay, well, somewhere along the line, somebody decided that I would have the equivalent of a really bad, wallpaper. Someone decided that they put their ideas and their taste into my world, if you like. But actually, now I'm a bit older, I can go back and look at that wallpaper and go, oh, bless, that was very, very good in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. But actually, for me now, it no longer serves me. I'm scraping it off. I'm taking it away. Does that make sense?
Exactly, because, the scientists now know, the medical world is acknowledging the fact that we create all our programs and our beliefs between the age of 0 to 6 because we're in a very impressionable time then. Our brains don't have the capacity to filter out what's right or wrong or what's good or bad. Our brains are just like sponges, and so we are just taking in information. So if you've got somebody who's constantly telling you that you're not good enough, or you don't deserve, or we can't afford this, or no, you can't have that, that's what you're going to continually take on board. And then that is going to become part of your belief system. But like you quite rightly said, it's all very well. All systems that we created between 0 and 6. The difference is who wants to take the responsibility and change it? Because if it's not working for you, you can't blame anybody else when you're an adult because you have the ability to go back and change those. And we know that we can, past, present, future, it's all, we can go and, when you're creating a dream of something that you want to achieve, you're looking into the future, you're trying to create it. In the same way, you can go back. You can go back and change your perception of events, of, maybe my bullying events. I remember one of those particular scenarios where they tried to drown me in the shower. Now, I could live with that, or I could go back. Now I've gone back and I've gone, okay, fair enough. That's what they tried to do, but I'm alive. So they didn't kill me.
Yeah.
But at the time I felt like they were going to kill me.
Yeah. Exactly.
But you see, so we have got the most incredible mind that we can use it to our advantage, or we can let it create our lives. Now the choice is yours as an adult, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Well, your mind's only really designed to keep you safe. So it will do whatever it thinks you want it to do. So, if you're back there in the shower and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to die. So I'm just going to say yes and agree with these girls or boys, whoever it is. Then your mind then says, okay, great. The way to keep you alive is to agree with everything that everybody else says, for example. And then it thinks that's exactly what you want. But actually, as an adult, no, you don't necessarily want to agree with everybody, particularly if they're trying to do you harm, right? But at the time, it's like, let's keep alive. That's a really good plan now, right now in this moment. It's really, really interesting. But of course, if you look back as an adult, you can go, is that, I know there's a guy who had some rapid results transformation done, and he went back regressed into some scenes because he was afraid of flying. And actually one of the scenes that he went back to was when he was a small boy, and he'd got a dog. And he went to school when he was like 5 years old. And when he came back, he found that his mum had left the door open and the dog had been run over. Now, for dog lovers like me and you, Lou, that's like, oh my gosh, that's like a trauma from hell, right? And then something else had happened. He visited another scene, and what had happened there was that he'd allowed his wife, I think, to drive the car, and she'd crashed the car. And then there was another scene where he'd allowed a business partner to make a decision for him, and the business, that deal was not a good deal. And after the process, he was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, is it because of that dog that my whole life has been like, I've been afraid?" And it was like, well, actually, if you think about it, whenever you gave control to somebody else, that's when things went wrong. So now when you get on a plane, you're like, oh my God, somebody else is in control. But actually, it wasn't. It's because he'd attached that memory to that very young, as you say, between 0 and 6, as a concept. And the brain had just gone, oh, the only way to keep you safe and anybody you like or love is to just not let them do anything. You have to do everything. So imagine holding on to that belief in your body for like, this guy was like in his 40s. Do you know what I mean? That's a long time to hold that kind of, I need to be in control.
You know, that it gets really sort of, and it doesn't have to always be a very direct relationship either to it, because when I was training in Matrix, we were shown a sort of an example of a guy that just couldn't lose weight. No matter what he did, he just wasn't able to lose it. And he would keep it all around his stomach. It's very sort of typical for him. And it was only when he went back into his, when you look at the energy of what it is you're holding, etc., and the process that you use, he actually got back into the womb. And in the womb, he had a twin. And his twin died in the womb. Now, for him, he was eating for 2. Because he wanted to keep his twin alive. Now, that is not a conscious decision. You're not going to sit there as an adult and say, consciously, I've got to eat double because I had an embryo in the womb and it died and I've got to keep that embryo alive. You're not going to do that. But subconsciously, he felt that he'd let the embryo down. So he needed to eat for 2 people because he felt that he needed to keep the embryo. And this is what I mean. It's so... oh, she's back.
We were doing so well there. Sorry, yes.
I didn't know.
So yes, you might, yeah. No, I'm still here. That was just a little moment to throw you into the abyss there. You see. Sorry about that, ladies and gents. So I was listening to you when you were talking about this guy who was eating for 2 with this embryo. Like you said, that's not a conscious thought. No. Has to be uncovered, I guess, through the body, through the unconscious mind.
And here's a tip for people, because when you are doing something that you just don't, when you can stop and think, what is going on there? What is motivating you to do that? Or why do I keep on doing this? You are probably just uncovering the fact that there's something going on a subconscious level that you're unaware of. So whenever you do a reaction, when you react to somebody in such a way, you think that was a little bit more than what that situation warranted, you can guarantee there is a belief underneath that you are responding to, because every reaction that you are doing, it's actually your inner child reacting. You're just the inner child's reacting, you're just the adult package. So if something is happening where you're just thinking it's a bit bizarre, it's very much a very, very short story. But I used to buy apples constantly, but at the end of the week, the apples would always be in the compost. And the next week I'd buy apples. And then the next week they'd be in the compost. And one day I just sat there and thought, hold on, what's going on here? Why do I keep on buying apples, but I don't eat them? Because I know they're good for me. And it was only when I went back into doing the process that it goes back to me being a little baby at a picnic where my mum was serving my brother chocolate cake. And I went and reached for the chocolate cake. She slapped me on the wrist and said, no, this is for you. And she gave me a piece of apple. Now, I cleared all that up and all the nuances of that. I eat apples now.
Yes. Really,
my
really
relief is I wanted the chocolate, and there was a whole raft of things there, but I didn't want to have the apple. I wanted the chocolate cake. So it is... I find it's fascinating when you get into this and all the little things that come out of it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. We've got Maureen joining us, and Maureen says, "So true. The body-mind connection is so real and so powerful." It is absolutely, Maureen. Yeah, she's absolutely right. So we've started to hear that there were some changes that you did. So you had to go back, look at a few things that had affected you as a child, be able to work on those, work through, as you said, one of the many processes, such as the matrix, to be able to find what was, right at the bottom of that belief, if you like. And so, where are you now? I mean, you know what to do. Who do you help, and what's going on? What's kind of like next for Louise?
Yeah, so what I was finding, that I was working with many people with, a range of things: digestion problems, skin problems, self-esteem, confidence issues, the gamut really. But after, my dad passed away at the start of the year, and my dad had been suffering from depression for over 26 years. And I was never able to help him, and because he didn't believe that you could heal yourself from within, basically. And so after February, after the dust settled after that, I just thought, right, you know what, I'm going to make it my mission to help other men who are in a situation where they've lost something significant to them. And, that's not just about a death. That can be anything. It could be a redundancy. It could be a diagnosis, because, if you've been diagnosed with something, part of your identity is just being. So it could be the fact that you did lose, or another person got a diagnosis. So all these events change the way we perceive our world. It rocks our boat, basically. And so I want to work with men who are actually challenged, who aren't perhaps living the life that they always dreamed they would be, or who are suffering depression, or just they've got to that point where they're just feeling hollow. They might have all the trimmings, but inside they feel a little bit hollow, because I know how that feels.
Yeah.
So I've been putting together a program, an online coaching program called Awaken Your Mojo. And it's not designed just for men, targeted for men, but women can join it. That's going to go live very soon. And then what we're going to be doing is actually doing a live 3-day event to sort of mirror that online coaching, because everybody learns in different ways. Some people like to have that personal interaction, others like to just do it on the computer. And then hopefully by the end of the year, my book, which is called Depression's Dance: Finding Freedom from the Black Cloud, will be live, will be published. So that's for me.
Yeah. And so, obviously I know your story. We've been working on your story together for a few months now. And just really, if you don't mind sharing. So what happened was your dad was a successful guy, and then you had a family loss, didn't you? What happened there that kind of changed your dad's personality, who he was?
Yeah, my dad was very successful. He was the first in his family to get a degree. He was the youngest appointed director of an international civil engineering company. He took us around the world with his job, very successful. And then, unfortunately, in 1991, a drunk driver killed my brother. And, my dad just could never come to terms with that. He could never get over it. There was he blamed his reasons, but he never got over it. And, Dad's life just we just literally for 26 years watched him deteriorate.
And when you said that you wanted to try and help him, so, the family were, saying, go to doctors, etc. But what was his viewpoint on that?
Yeah, Dad was very much of the generation, I guess, of you've got to sort your own problems out. You've got to be strong enough to sort your own problems. And he didn't want to go to the doctors. He could go to a doctor, and he refused to do that because he said, I just don't want to be put on tablets. I don't want to be put on antidepressants. And that's all they're going to do. Now, he had the willpower because he gave up a 40-a-day smoking habit and a 40-year drinking habit overnight. Literally, New Year's Eve, he said, I'm not drinking tomorrow, and that was it. So this man had the willpower. He wasn't a weak man. He had been a successful person, and in my eyes, he still was. But, what people need to understand sometimes is that you know, I'm not people who, I get slightly annoyed by the perception that the general population have about people who have depression. That, you know, they have this image that people are just sitting in bed and whiling away the days away. That's not the case. You know, if that were the case, you know, you've got successful people like Robin Williams who killed themselves. Depression just just molds your perception a completely different way. And even to make this, you know, to send a text to somebody, to pick up the phone to somebody, can feel like it's a huge task. So my dad, unfortunately, just wouldn't seek help because he felt that he was supposed to be able to do it for himself. But then, unfortunately, you know, I've been talking to him several times with the work that I've been doing to just try it. And he let me try something, and he sort of shied away from it. And then, sadly, Cheryl, as you know, only a couple of days before he died, he'd actually phoned me and asked me to help him. And then I was supposed to go up and help him, and 3 or 4 days later, but then he actually died in between.
Yeah. Is that what you think drives you?
Yeah, because I honestly don't think everybody, sorry. This is a condition that you can help. This is a condition that can change. But our collective opinion of this condition holds a lot of people in it. And I think, had Dad not had this massive perception of the stigma of being labelled with a mental illness and all the ramifications that that would have, he would have sought help. And I just feel like I want to educate people to show them that it doesn't have to be that way. I never considered myself as having a mental illness. I just knew that I had suffered so many losses in my life that I hadn't been able to handle them. And then when I knew that there was about the losses, and when you can handle the losses and you come to terms with those, everything else just fell away. And, you know, people who are suffering from depression, I without a shadow of a doubt, would have suffered loss in some shape or form. And it's criminal that we're giving them something else to worry about, because they're already trying to sort out the losses that they've experienced. And, you know, people say it's a mental illness. Well, Cheryl, everything's a mental illness, isn't it? Because everything is determined by our mind. So, yes. You know, so, yeah.
See, that's where the passion comes from, right? So things happen in our lives. I'm just going to. So things happen to us in our lives. We don't necessarily understand it. We don't necessarily know that work like you do is around. So I think it's really good that you're inspiring people, you know, because through your story, because it's very clear. And I want to thank you, Louise, for digging deep there, because I almost get a sense that maybe your father was your Prince Charming, but now maybe godmother. Does that make sense? Because I believe that you're the fairy godmother because you want to change the world for other people, because you know what it's like to be Cinderella, or at least be Cinderella in your own mind, if you like. And then you also know what it's like to be Cinderella going to the ball, because you've been to America, you know, you've stood in front of like thousands of people. I mean, what's this with John Travolta and is it Calvin Klein? What's this all about? Let's just share about that.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough last year in November to be at an event in Orlando where you know what? It's really funny. I've got the calling card of the people that were coming on the stage on the day that I went on, and I was on before Calvin Klein. So my little thing is that I warmed the stage up. I warmed the audience. Anyway. But no, this was where 1,500 entrepreneurs and business owners from 62 countries were meeting to talk about, driving their business and profits, etc., for 2017. And my presentation was really about how to tap into the intelligence of your body so that you can tap into those resources to improve your bottom. If you're not operating to full capacity, then your business can't be operating to full capacity. Tony Robbins has a phrase, if your body's not happy, then it's impossible for you to perform at any peak level. And this is called, I think, sometimes forget that they go to work and, oh yeah, your body's just something you happen to walk around in. No, this is the most incredible computer and machine available to you. And it's like, my analogy is it's like a sports car. This freaking amazing sports car, and then go and put crappy, horrible stuff inside the engine and expect it to be able to work properly. So why do people think that our bodies can work perfectly if we're not, we're not feeding it properly, we're not sleeping properly, we're not sorting out all the energy blocks that we've got inside of us? And when you do that, you will just perform so much better. You'll have the energy to do what you need to do in a day. You'll sleep better. Now, insomnia is a huge problem with people, particularly successful people, because they're just constantly on this, like, I need to drive. But, you need to recognize also that some of the most powerful things come from when you just stop. The most powerful insights come from when you just have that time to go inside and just tap into your intelligence, really.
Yeah.
So that's what the presentation was about last year.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And then Johnny on after. Were you in like a famous? Were you like the celebrity in the middle of the other celebrities?
Yeah.
Fabulous.
I was a Cinderella ball.
Yeah, you were the Cinderella going to the ball, right? Yeah, cool. And so, just using your car analogy there, if anybody has got, and I know that you have you want to help men, but as you said, your process can also help women. But we can see that connection. It was too late before your father realised that you could help him, or that he was open to that. I know that some days, like everybody else, you'll have moments where you're like, oh, am I doing the right thing? And then what happens? It's almost like your dad's with you, isn't it?
Yeah, a couple of funny things have happened recently, and I was taking my puppy for a walk, and we'd gone into the stream. And I was having a little bit of a moment. It was a very raw day for me. It was Father's Day. And I was just sort of saying, why did all this sort of stuff? And all this was coming out. And I was bawling my eyes out. I think I was filling the river up with all my tears. And I just went, will you just sort of show me a sign? Can you just show me that you're up there or wherever? And then, no word of a lie, this woman just appeared from nowhere, literally, with this little dog. And I was like, where did she come from? And I got chatting to her, and she was her dog was playing with mine. And then she called its name. And I went, you are? What's your dog called? And she went, Dave. I went, Dave? Who calls a dog Dave? And she goes, I know, it's really stupid. She said, my boyfriend said, one day somebody's going to need to hear his name. And I went, you've got to be kidding me. And of course, I burst into tears. And she goes, what's going on? And I told her, well, my dad's name was Dave. So that was my sign. And, I come home and I sort of think about my dad, and I turn the radio on, and his favourite singer, Frank Sinatra, is playing on the radio. On Radio 2. I mean, Radio 2 doesn't play Frank Sinatra.
Funny.
So, yeah.
I just got goose pimples then, just by the way, just so you know. So let's say that there are some people out there that are driving their sports car. They've been putting a bit of shit in it, or they haven't got rid of, they haven't had a service recently. They've got a few warning lights flashing. So how do they get in touch with you, Louise? How can they get in contact with you?
Okay, so I have a website called Louise K Shaw. And they can also get hold of me on Facebook, either by Louise K Shaw, or even The Body Whisperer, which is my Facebook page, where I talk more, like more detail about in terms of how you can use your body to help you.
The Body Whisperer, yeah. Whisperer. Whisperer. I don't even know how to spell it.
Yeah.
Body Whisperer.
But also, since my dad passed as well, I'm starting up a charitable foundation called Depression to Freedom. I've also got a page on Facebook called that, Depression to Freedom. And if people want to be put on the list for the book to be published, when the book's published, if they just sort of PM me or Facebook me or something, I've got a list that's growing with people who want to get first access to the book. So
yeah, good stuff, good stuff. So what we'll do is we'll put underneath the links from the interview. That'd be great. And we've got a couple of more comments. So we've got Maureen. Maureen is saying, thank you so much, Louise, for sharing. Really inspiring, and your passion is so clear, which is great. And so, in this short time that we've been able to share, what I'd like to know is, do you have like a quote? I know you quote a couple of other people. Have you got a quote that's helped you, or a saying that's helped you through life?
Yeah. I think it was Ruby who said this, but it was, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise and I want to change myself.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Love it. Bit of roomy. So yesterday I was clever, I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise and I want to change myself. Yeah, brilliant. I love it so much. Louise, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for helping us to get out your message, to understand that, life's not just a short road, an unsmooth path, even if you have got a Ferrari or a supercar. And so thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for sharing your story about your dad as well, who is obviously helping you to connect with the guys. I suppose you do get these things. Oh, men won't listen to women. What would you say to that?
Yeah, so men don't go to the moms or their sisters for advice then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you're not their mum and you're not their sister, but you are their fairy godmother. And I think that's why Cinderella probably played quite a big part in your life. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's listening. We look forward to hearing your comments if you're listening to this on the recording. And in the meantime, thank you for sharing your story, changing your life, and being inspiring to everybody else. So good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Goodbye.
Thank
you, Cheryl. And goodbye from Louise.
Thank you.
See you. Thank you. Bye-bye.